Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VC TV. Ah! I am your host, Kyle Ellicott. We've got a fun and exciting episode for you today. If you don't know what the sound was in reference, you're going to find out in just a little bit. But with that being said, we're going to be talking about space and deep technologies. We're going to be looking to the stars and much further beyond, but looking at the deep technologies, those integrative, deep infrastructure technologies that are going to help us get there, but also are helping fuel our world down here on Earth today. I know this may sound like science fiction, but it's science fact. We are already in this process right now. We need to talk about it. There's huge opportunities and even more than you can ever imagine to start investing and building in each of these industries. And we brought two of the best, the brightest to talk just about this from the space side and from the deep tech side. Get ready. It's going to be a fun episode today here on BCTV. But before we get started, a big thank you for you tuning in. If you're liking what you hear today, make sure you click that subscribe button down there to tune into all episodes every day, all day. BCTV from around the world as we bring the best and the brightest to talk to you about different technologies, industries, and regions around the world with their thoughts and insights from their on-the-ground perspective. And if you yourself would like to be on BCTV, do reach out and we'd love to find the right spot for you. And entrepreneurs, that goes for you too. We're less than 30 days out here in 2020. What better way to end the year and kick off 2021 than joining us on the virtual stage here at VCTV? Have the chance to pitch us as founders and investors focused on your industry, get real-time feedback on your company, product, or service, build foundational relationships with us, and get exposure to the live audience. What better opportunity than that to close out your year? Reach out to the team and or myself. We'd love to find the right spot for you. Last but not least, a huge thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Maria for making VCTV possible every single day and bringing us all together in this wonderful virtual environment to be able to share our thoughts and insights with you, our audience. That being said, let's introduce our guest. Irina, welcome back to the show. It's an absolute pleasure to have you. A little intro and a little background.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be back. I missed you guys. I'm so excited to talk today about space. I actually woke up at 4 a.m. yesterday to talk on VCTV Singapore. It was space and deep tech. I was like setting up the alarm and waking up extra early. So such a pleasure to be back. My name is Irina Litchfield. I'm founder of Blockchain Cubed. Blockchain Cubed is a blockchain integration company. I'm also president of Lumeria. Lumeria is where capital meets innovation. Our goal is to democratize opportunities and democratize investments all over the world. I'm also a senior advisor for Space Fund. And so this topic is very relevant to me. And Lumeria will be launching first quarter next year with actually space companies as well. There's a lot of exciting stuff that's happening in space and in deep tech, and it's just such a pleasure to be back.
It's awesome to have you as well. And you're right, there is so much happening. And speaking of Space Fund, we had Megan Crawford, one of the managing partners, founding partners, pardon me, on here. And her and I did an amazing one-on-one fireside conversation. So if you haven't listened to that audience, I highly recommend it, full of knowledge. And we also had Ifran on, who's also an advisor to the fund as well recently, to talk a little bit about what's happening in deep tech and on the energy space. Again, another mind-blowing conversation. And today with Irina being here, I mean, this is just setting the stage for a great conversation because she's right, there's so much here. But last but not least, we're also joined today by the Grand Master himself of artificial intelligence. Before the show, he was flickering in and out. We weren't sure if he was really here or if he was an artificial intelligence-driven hologram. But ladies and gentlemen, he is here to join us in the flesh. Gary Fowler, welcome back to the show, my friend. A little intro.
Does that mean I have to say, ah?
There you go. There you go.
It's kind of a wow experience, if you know what I mean. So it's great to be here. My name's Gary Fowler, and I'm a serial entrepreneur. Been 16 companies. I love artificial intelligence, quantum computing now, cybersecurity, space, deep tech. I mean, you name it. Any place where AI can have a monument, make a monumental difference. So that's really where we are. So I'm the CEO and president of GSD, Get Shit Done Venture Studios, and also GSD Labs. So where we help companies go global. You know, I've been doing technology companies for 30 years, done an IPO on NASDAQ, We've had one exit. I was on the original management team. Click Software sold for $1.35 billion. And also Eva, which is one of my companies that I started 4 years ago. I also have health tech companies, quite a few companies, actually. I just love technology. Country boy from Pennsylvania, and it's good to be here with the Yoda, with the grand Yoda of everything, Kyle, and my friend Arena.
Thank you. It is an honor as well.
Not just a Yoda, the grand Yoda.
The grand Yoda. I am a step. I don't feel worthy, but thank you very much for that.
And that's another movie.
That's another movie. That's another episode of VCTV coming here just shortly for you afterwards later today. But I want to come back, Gary, in just a moment on quantum and security. However, before we do that, Arena, I want to start off with space. You work and do a lot, actually, more than I think the audience knows, around space fun and the industry as a whole. Right now, as we close out 2020, we just had an outstanding mission completed by SpaceX, sending some individuals up to the International Space Station for an extended journey. And we also just, I saw on Twitter yesterday, pictures actually being sent back, video footage of on the ground from Curiosity, I believe it is, of the landscape of Mars. So we're starting to see this bridge moving into space, not just being something of, again, science fiction, but truly science fact. And now an industry that we all need to be paying attention to. From your view, what's happening in space in the industry as a whole today that some may not be aware of, but should be kept up to date on?
Absolutely. It's so much excitement is happening. Actually, yesterday also China landed on the moon to collect samples or whatever they're doing there. I don't, that's what they say they're doing there. But
to clarify, they actually sent a rover.
Yeah.
If I'm correct, right? I read the same. So just for the audience, and I'll put this in the notes here in just a moment.
No people landed, right?
Yeah, there was a robot, a rover, we'll call it, that landed on China on the moon, and then at the same time we got this video footage from Mars as well, and it's fascinating. But sorry, continue.
No, not at all. What's important about that is that we're going back, right? So last time we were on the moon, it was the entrepreneurs from Israel who basically were able to launch and crash into the moon for $1 million, which is unbelievable. It just kind of communicates what's possible, right? Because they use different service providers for launch, and through cargo, they did that. They didn't need $1 billion to crash into the moon. They did it for $1 million. And that's amazing for entrepreneurship. A lot is happening in the space. In the last 6 months, space industry is just exploding. So many companies are taking spotlights, and most importantly, a lot of development is happening and a lot of launching is happening. Obviously, for the most part, when we think about kind of a commercial application for now, shorter term, it's lower Earth orbit. So we call it LEO. So if you see a reference to LEO in the space news, that's basically what it is. It's a lower Earth orbit. And that's kind of the big target that a lot of investors are concentrating on right now. However, it is very still important to understand that we are experiencing race to the moon and race to the Mars. And it's different type of a race because it's not a political, it's commercial race this time, right? So, and the difference in that is so important. And the fact is that Chinese landed the rover yesterday communicates that things are going to get expedited even faster, right? The reason it's important is because there's ice on the moon, so we can build hydrogen motors and go to the Mars. So I do think that the things that Elon Musk says, as wild as they sound, they are realistically closer to us than they were before.
Well, and to your point again, I mean, science fiction to science fact, right? Some of this stuff has just been so far out there that, we could only imagine it. We couldn't actually see it happen, right? We visited the moon on the ground once, and that was it, right? We started to tease out exploration, but again, it was just a tease. And now we actually have this starting to happen on a more regular basis. And I think one thing to note as well is this is not cheap, right? There is a huge cost to these missions. Now let's pause there. So real quick, coming back, the thing that Arena you're mentioning and touching on so much is that there is movement happening, but throughout this, there are these little picks and shovels, these little pieces that everyone should be looking at and focusing on to start building, because those don't need a lot of capital, right? So one of the examples both you and Megan have referenced previously on VCTV is, in space gas stations, and how there was a company, and I forgot their name, which you can provide here in just a moment if you remember as well, that they wanted to build these gas stations for fuel
different
deployment
service
in
providers.
space. Yeah, and that they saw, well, hey, this is something we want to do in the future, but right now it's probably not the best use of capital. So actually, let's start. And they found the idea of producing fuel capsules, if I'm correct. And then they found this enormous business for just the cap of fuel containers. It's crazy how much there is. But I want to pause on that for just a second. So Gary, I'm coming down to you. So we just went to the stars, coming back down. One of the big pieces of this puzzle that's not really talked about, or I should say two, AI, quantum. AI is helping us do a lot of this activity, but quantum is probably going to be a big piece of this. What are you seeing in both of those areas that people need to be aware of today, whether it's related to the stars or again here on the ground? Because quantum, like space, is science, has been science fiction, and now is today science fact.
Well, I
AI,
mean, Kyle, look at Nikola Tesla when he was talking about communications. He did his remote boat in the late 1800s. He talked about the fluorescent lights. I mean across the board. And so at the time, I remember seeing cartoons from those eras. I was watching a documentary, and they had him as a mad scientist. But look at a lot of he talked about. X-rays. I mean, I literally across the board, communication, cell phones. I mean, it's come true. So, and it's so funny because the original mobile phones, the Motorola StarTAC, looked very similar to what you had on the USS Enterprise and Star Trek, right? The StarTAC looked like Star Trek. And so, I mean, it's funny how the things really come to life, and we're in an unprecedented time. I mean, think about it. So our friend Christopher Altman, who's a NASA astronaut, told me that there's 6 billion Earth-like planets now just in the Milky Way galaxy, and now estimated to be 200 trillion. And when you say Earth-like, that means close enough to a star that they could have life because of the conditions, the seasons, et cetera. So, I mean, these are unprecedented times. And we look at, I mean, we're on, what did he tell me? He said, and it was interesting, when you look down at the Earth, when the astronauts talk about when they come look at the Earth, it's a religious experience because you understand how small we really are and the whole scope of the universe. So now we talk about travel to Mars. I mean, we've got a lot of challenges when there's debris, there's objects flying at you. We need to have devices on those ships that can identify and course correct very quickly to make sure we don't, if you're out in space and you're traveling, what is it, a year to go to Mars? You don't want to be having some small rock hit your ship and end up creating a problem. So you depressurize it. We don't want those kind of occurrences. So there's a lot of things to take into consideration, and it's all about the data, right? All the data points. The other thing is the European Space Agency has an intelligent assistant. So, I mean, loneliness on the ship, to be able to talk to somebody, to be able to analyze what's happening with you, right? Like an intelligent, was it the Space Odyssey? HAL. It was HAL. Actually.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you, is it HAL or her or Her was the other movie with Joaquin Phoenix. But in any case, do you see a presence like that, an artificial presence that would be in these scenarios?
Yeah, I mean, that's what they developed, right? So European space agents, that's what's happening now. This is not fiction, but you don't want to have a Skynet either.
That is true.
Hello, see you later. Hey, the door's closed. I hope you have fun.
Right. Roll the dice. See how you're gonna go.
Good luck. Hasta la vista, baby. No, so what we got to do is we got to make sure. But these are the kind of challenges. I mean, look at it. By the year 2100, it's estimated. I mean, the population of the planet has quadrupled in the last 100 years, and if it stayed on track, it's going to reduce. Will be estimated now 13 billion. But we don't have enough potable water. We don't have enough land. We're destroying our climate, right? With the global warming. I mean, look at it. I mean, a lot of things are changing very, very quickly. So we've got to look beyond the Earth. And, you know, it's interesting to see how fast, think about 200 years ago, 100 years ago, if we would have been talking about going to Mars then, I mean, it was just a pipe dream. To go to the moon, they had like, I remember seeing was a French movie mogul had this space shot like of a bullet on the moon. I don't know if you saw it. Johnny Depp played the character in a movie. Anyhow, it's just interesting how things have really dramatically shifted. So the universe is up. I remember again your friend Christopher Altman talking about being able to the teleportation of quantum particles is part of his research as a PhD quantum physicist. I mean, traveling through wormholes. I mean, it's just opening up. Quantum. So taking a system that could process at 100 million times faster than a conventional computer. Think about it. Something would take 10,000 years in a conventional computer could take 200 seconds on a quantum computer. That's a lot of stuff happening. Think about if you're doing drug modeling. Think if you're trying to figure out trajectories. You know, it's just incredible. So how many advances are we going to have? I mean, it's virtually unlimited. So quantum computers, like, you know, it's like what the Greeks talked about having an oracle, but for real.
Right. I mean, what does this do, you know, Irina, to your thinking as well? I mean, how does this change the game for us as we look towards the stars? I mean, furthering on Gary's point, whether it be, you know, actually the propulsion to get us there, whether it's on the station itself, so currently the International Space Station, or if it's getting us further beyond, because the computing processing power that Gary's talking about, as he's referenced in quantum, I mean, that changes the game very dramatically. And again, science fiction to science fact here, but would love to hear your thoughts as to how does quantum play a role as well from what you're seeing as well on the space side.
Absolutely. I think that all of the above, right? Because it allows us to really calculate complex modeling, and complex modeling is something that just like Gary said, you know, wrapping our heads around the exponential growth that quantum computing allows us to do is unbelievable. I think that we really are going to, and you know, people say quantum leap, and often but I think that's exactly what it is. The exponential growth that will become available for us on so many different verticals is huge. And for space exploration, that's very important. I do personally believe that we are due to advancement in physics. The way we travel right now and the way we learn, we know how the physics work is, in my opinion, is outdated. And there are several projects that are actually working on breaking through those boundaries, right? For example, one of them is quantum machines. So it really is just looking at physics in a different way, but we need the ability to model better. And so I think as the computing becomes faster, we can then model a lot of interesting things. And I want to go back to what Gary said about the kind of emotional, about loneliness, right? And going into space. And often people say that, well, you just send several people, right? And so then you eliminate the loneliness. But however, it's still not enough. You really need, in order for us to push the frontiers of space, and that means going to the great unknown and going to that where, 100 years ago, going to Mars was something that was just a pipe dream, just a fantasy. We still have so much boundary to push in that fantasy realm, right? Like, just because we're getting to the Mars, we can go so much further. But for us to be able to go further, we really need to be able to create a healthy ecosystem where people can survive all the unknown factors, right? That includes isolation and complete unplug from your world as you know it.
Right. And that's a fascinating point. So you bringing up this world ecosystem, right? So right now we talk about getting from point A to point B, right? So from on the ground to the International Space Station, as an example, right? Or from the station to a planet, being the moon and or Mars, et cetera. So we're just really talking about these point A to point Bs. But what you're talking about and bringing up is a great point of this entire ecosystem of everything that we need, not just for our survival, because as we've learned from you before, space is always trying to kill you. So we're not only just our general survival, but also to have like what feels like a natural environment when we're in space, right? So again, the gas stations, the general living stations, and all these other things as well. But Irina, to switch gears real quick, blockchain. Our favorite subject here on VCTV. Go blockchain. There we go. Okay, we're 3 for 3. Maybe Maria will jump in and throw the fourth one out for us if we're lucky. But with that, how does blockchain play a role in space? I mean, we've got a few companies that are doing mining, right? That have sent small satellites up into space to do mining of currencies. But realistically, I want to go beyond that and see how blockchain plays a bigger role in the future of space technologies for those that may be looking at this.
Yeah, absolutely. Blockchain is very important. I'll start kind of with that far out and away. When we think about the space exploration and we think about sending missions, one-way missions, to send the ecosystem, that immutable information is going to be very important, right? Because the ability to not change and make sure that we engrave information is important for those type of emissions. At least it would be important for us as we send them out, right? So I think a blockchain as just an immutable ledger is very important on its own. Now, if we bring it forward here back into more of a reality, right? Because space exploration is still kind of a farther away, right? It's still that dream that we, one day we will be able to go and be in space and have, settlement missions going somewhere and seeing what happens. Basically, to me, the biggest application is supply chain, right? And it's important because, as you said, everything is extremely expensive in space. And so your errors, your mistakes in a supply chain are unbelievable. I mean, a rocket, what is $500 million? So it just blows up, right? Poof, and it's gone. And it can happen because of simply faulty parts. And we actually saw that happen last year. So supply chain is a great application for that, right? For just creating kind of a systems back here. Of course, also in-space payment system. I really would like somebody to build a couple of those. So entrepreneurs, I'll even help you. Just reach out to me and I'll guide you through and what you need to do. I do have blockchain company, so I can assist you. You don't need to be the expert in that. But I'd love to see some of the companies that basically allow the service providers in space, so even if it's in low orbit, to be able to do transactions, right? So if you need a 3D part, you exchange some kind of tokens, and it all happens in space, and then you can push all the data set for settlement, back to Earth, and you can do reconciliation back here. But that's very, very important. And of course, to me, again, the supply chain for in space, right? Because the margin for error are even thinner there, right? Like it does try to kill you nonstop. It tries to smoosh all your things, and as Gary said, a little rocket comes in and poof, you have a problem, and that problem accelerates very, very fast. So I see those two applications that are kind of a cover, and there's everything in between, right? But blockchain and space industry are important. And I also think that that's, again, my personal opinion, is that tokenization of assets is what we're going to see growing in 2021. And kind of a securities token, and it is still a blockchain application. I think we will see a lot of interesting securities token offerings for space companies. And by the way, Space Fund is one of the first venture capital that are dedicated to space, right? And also their first ever tokenized fund. So they're hybrid. You can either or do both. And so we really do believe that we are going to see that transition in securities and capital markets going on to the blockchain. And space, I think, is going to be one of the bigger ones because it is most reliable asset, not asset class yet, but we're working on being asset class. And so because of that, tokenizing it makes it available globally. And that's what you need for better liquidity, because as you said, everything is extremely expensive, right? You can have an A-round company raising $100 million.
Times are changing, and great points, Irina. Gary, to you, cybersecurity. You mentioned this in the beginning. We've talked a little bit about this recently, but when we look towards the stars, that's one area, but just in general, security seems to always be the last thing people talk about when they're looking at building or investing in something. For you, the question here is, where does cybersecurity play a role in space? One. And two, what's generally happening in the cybersecurity space that people may not be aware of that they need to be, as you also focus on AI and quantum, which are going to impact the future of it?
Well, I mean, the thing is, we don't focus on cybersecurity as much as we should. We have all this data around us, and as I've said many times, and especially really appropriate here, the amount of data on the planet Earth is 40 zettabytes today. It's 29 trips if you put DVDs one on top of another back and forth to the moon, and it's grown at 61.7% per year. So massive amount of data around us. And with that data, I feel like Spider-Man, with data comes great responsibilities, but we got a lot of challenges. I mean, there's a lot of data out there, and we haven't really looked at it the way we should in terms of cybersecurity. I mean, I remember having a criminology class when I was in university. We talked about, whenever something comes out as a fix, the bad guys come in and figure out how to break it. But now with quantum computers, we're in a whole different level, because as we said, there could be two quantum computers facing off against each other, and the calculations are so fast that it's not like, well, I'm just going to put this antivirus system in and it's going to take care of it. No, you got to have a machine that can anticipate where the next break's going to take place, because now with the Internet of Things, think about it. If they took control of the satellites, right? You had a quantum computer that could go up and grab all the satellites and, switch them off. Hello, this is this is a simple stuff. So we've got a lot of challenges moving forward. At the same time, in Kyle, when we talk about space, we got to talk about it's not just the travel, it's about things like satellites, right? And think about the onboard satellite systems that we have today currently in that are looking at things like floods and volcanic eruptions, where to capture images. I don't know if you know, but I mean, from a satellite, you can literally see a dime from space. I mean, people don't realize that you can actually read the date on a dime from space. They're that good. So we've got to go down through. And what about space debris? Think about all the debris that's out there floating, how we track it and who's tracking it. We didn't think about it before. We put all this garbage out there, literally garbage, and what's happening with it. So we've got to go down through and understand. And I mean, they're doing research today. AI is doing research and things like dark matter in space. Those kind of things are critically important for us. What about asteroids? I just read 2 days ago, there's an unidentified object. I'm not saying a spaceship coming towards Earth. Well, I mean, there's a reason the dinosaurs aren't around. Hello, So, I mean, we should be thinking about how to thwart those kind of things rather than, it's creating wars with each other. It should be some kind of joint effort. We need to fix the planet and move forward, not to be and protect it, not to try to kill each other. And who's going to win this battle? We got to go out there and work together. So we've got, and now going to Mars. If we look at where we are in terms of the next, the Mars Rover edition. So the 2020 Rover is going out. We've got to understand what we're going to be getting into in Mars exactly. And there's a lot of not skepticism, but curiosity, shall we say, about some of the things that they found already. Now let's explore those. Was Mars an Earth-like planet? Really? Right? Because they said they found some evidence of water on Mars. It's fascinating. And anyhow, so AI is going to put a huge part on it. The last thing, again, with cybersecurity, what we don't want to do is have some hostile force taking control of a ship that's out with people on it going to Mars. Can you imagine how that would be? And hold them hostage, right? So the issues need to be resolved. We better do it before it's a problem.
Absolutely. And that being said, Arena and Gary, I'll come to both of you on this, but Arena, let's start with you. Opportunities. So we've talked a lot about all these areas, and you talked a little bit about payments in space and a few other areas that could be opportunities. But where should both investors and founders be focused on over the next 3 years? Okay, we're gonna kind of bridge between what we've talked about previously. So over the next 3 years, what should both sides of the table be looking at, whether to be deploying capital into or be building as well as these industries really start to take off? Because to both of your points, space is still in its early infancy in terms of coming to market, right? Where we're all starting to get into it. Quantum is its very, very, very early days, but blockchain and AI are starting to have their moments. So with that all being said, all these areas and some of the other stuff we haven't talked about, where are some of those areas of opportunity, Arena, you see that people should be paying attention to over the next 3 years?
Yes, next 3 years, I think exactly this, basically security, all the things that Gary mentioned are real and they're real problems. And before we go in explore space, we must make sure we clean up the mess that we have made so far. There's a lot of space garbage, and actually it's the sensors that we have right now, for example, are 1 mile away. 1 mile. So like once it gets closer to you, you don't know what the hell is going on, right? It's unbelievable that what is happening. And now that's gonna sound very scary for some people, but I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. There's a space war going on right now, and that space war going on for different governments. And the cyber attacks, people think cyber attacks are going to happen from hacking whatever, whatever systems, the internet, something. It really is the biggest attacks and biggest threats that we have right now are actually coming from taking down our satellites. And as Gary said, taking them over. And it is one of the biggest issues that Space Force is concentrating on. And they have a really big budget dedicated to supporting startups that can provide cybersecurity and justice security, as well as physical security as well as kind of figuring out how do we deal with the space mess that we have. And most importantly, moving forward, how do we design better systems to where when something goes offline, we can clean it up much better than what is happening right now. The reason I'm saying this is because it means that there's a big opportunity, and that's where that opportunity for next 3 years. So for the entrepreneurs and for the investors, I would keep my eye open on that, because these are the biggest challenges that we're dealing with. And when we have challenges, it means that we have open opportunities for growth, right? So I think that, and again, importantly, there's funding for it available, and funding available for it not just from Space Force, which they clearly. So I was at a North American Space Symposium in September, and General of Space Force did the address, and his biggest message was that they really are moving forward into new era where now basically entrepreneurs and solutions, they're basically seeking out solutions from free enterprise to come in and create solutions for them, because they do not have, there's not enough talent internally, and it can't be any more recruiting into the Space Force, right? Recruiting people to go to Air Force, for example. So they're really wanting to bridge to free enterprise and empower entrepreneurs and give them kind of ability, because it's a big problem. It's one of the, basically that's what I carried out from there, is that we're really under big threat right now. And that's where I would deploy funding right now. Besides all the things, once you already invested in that, I would go and start diversifying portfolio in the gas station, and maybe get a launch platform, and kind of asteroid mining, and keep pushing forward. But for now, we need to take care of Leo. We have to take care of Leo. And we are daily under threat of being able to just lose completely our internet, right? Like, what happens if it all goes down? And it's possible, and it's real, and it's now. So cybersecurity is number one opportunity right now.
All right. Thank you, Irina. And Gary, to you, same question. Over the next 3 years, what should people be paying attention to on both sides of the table?
Well, I mean, the thing is artificial intelligence, right? Because we're going to need like this crew interactive module. I just sent an article over, by the way, Kyle, that I wrote on.
I got it.
Space. But those are the kind of things, innovative ways we can create these, human-like companions that can help us to emotionally feel better, but also, medically. I mean, we're going to have systems that can check us out and relay information back to Earth. So the things like, we're talking about terraforming on Mars. I mean, we're doing it. There are companies, I forget the name, Carbon E maybe, but they're actually terraforming on the Earth. They're dropping like 100,000 trees per day using drones. So these kind of technologies, if we're going to live on these other planets, but think about the innovations that came through just because of going up to space. So Velcro, I don't know, most people don't know, Velcro was a Russian invention that was commercialized in the West, but came from space shoots, right? So the actually Velcro, look at all there's thousands of technologies that came out of space. So what we got to do is, as we're going through, how can we eat longer? How do we carry that food to space? How do we have artificial intelligence to be able to help us with medical procedures? What happens if there's an accident in space? Yes, that astronauts are trained for 2 years and they have to learn emergency medical procedures. But I was reading an article in the India Times that said that, they're still not preferred. What about the unknown? So the good news is the technology is there. Today it's being developed on our artificial intelligence side to look at all that data, pull it in to help us make better decisions. We've got challenges, as Irina said, with cybersecurity. So anything around cybersecurity. Again, these are transportable models that can be used in different way. If we're cyber secure in space, we're cyber secure on the grid, right? So
Mhm.
it's not one place. And the other thing is, quite frankly, we're going to need how to work together. These are problems beyond any one country that we got to figure out. We're going to come together as a society or we'll perish. We need to start working together to solve problems, because when that asteroid does come, we better damn well be ready to be able to figure out how to be able to get it off course so it doesn't hit us. Because the last thing we want is that to happen. Anticipate now and use the technology to be able to help us, make this world a little bit better place.
Well, and we'll have to call up Bruce Willis and Ben Affleck and the whole Armageddon crew to help us out. All jokes aside,
Superman.
or Superman. All jokes aside, we like to have fun here on VCTV. But to Gary and Arita's points, there's a lot of opportunities, but there's also a lot of potential issues that are impeding on us as we continue to advance ourselves year by year here. And again, more opportunities around space exploration, but more importantly, space business, space economy, where space is. So the economy and business that we'll be doing outside of things here on Earth. So again, going to the stars and beyond as well. But then also talking about blockchain and how that applies, not just to those areas, but also here on the ground. And again, looking at cybersecurity and protecting that supply chain or that value chain all the way through from the data to what we are doing in real time in those areas, to the AI that will be powering and keeping us not lonely, as well to the quantum computing power that really will probably change our entire world as we can even imagine it today. I want to thank both of you so much for all of this. I mean, there's so much we could go on both these topics for hours, but as we come to close here, closing thoughts, and then also where can everyone find you? So Irina, let's start with you. Closing thoughts to today's conversation around space, deep tech, but really, blockchain, cybersecurity, AI, quantum, ML. Closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you?
My closing thoughts would be we're stepping into era of integration, and we must integrate innovations as well as have ability to work together, as Gary said. I think that's my biggest concentration to carry out of it, because these innovations that we discussed, they're happening. And they're going to change the way we look at the world and the way we think about the world. So that also means there are huge opportunities as well. So I really want to encourage entrepreneurs to look at all of this innovations and see how they can be part of the ecosystem and how they can integrate these innovations into their respective industry. And as well as investors, I really would like to encourage them to open up your thesis to diversifying your portfolio and looking at investing in these opportunities as well. Because if we look at the 10-year investment, 10 years from now, we're going to live in a completely different world, and it's going to be very, very different. So remember that where you deploy your funding now is going to be direct result of the reality that we live in between 5 to 10 years from now. So think wisely and deploy, vote with your dollars, and empower those entrepreneurs that are leading the way and that are integrating and whose values are built in a way to where they want to democratize opportunities and investments and connect our segregated worlds. As Gary said, we either start working together or we're living out our last days or years, whatever it is. And find me on Twitter or find me on LinkedIn. Just make sure that you make the reference of where you met me and what you would like from me. And I'm always available, and I'm always happy to connect.
Wonderful. Thank you, Irina. Gary, to you, same thing. Closing thoughts, and then where can everyone find you online?
Yeah, I mean, so I remember as a kid, Kyle, I got a telescope. I was probably 12 years old, and I was and 11 years old, I'm sorry. I was really happy. I got it from Edmund Scientific, and I was able to see the moon. And I mean, I was just fascinated by it. I mean, think about it based on what Christopher Altman said. If there are 200 trillion galaxies out there, and we got 6 billion Earth-like planets in ours, that's 1,200 trillion Earth-like planets. So are we alone? And I mean, those are the kind of questions we've been asking for a long time, but we're finally starting to, we're at the very, very beginning steps of probing to figure out what's really out there. And at some point, we're going to need to look at other planets to be able to survive. So it's a great time. Artificial intelligence across the board is a very, very interesting place to invest. So I encourage companies, we are data driven, and making better decisions with that data is critically important today. You can reach me, Gary Fowler. I'm the CEO and president of Get Shit Done GSD Venture Studios, a premier global venture studio helping companies go global, located in Silicon Valley. You can reach me on Twitter, Gary Fowler. You can reach me on LinkedIn, or send me an email, gary@gsdvs.com. I'd be happy to talk to you, and tune into my shows. I have, yesterday I had Bill Reichert from Silicon Valley on, Guy Kawasaki's partner, talking about going global. It's free access for you. Check it out. Be happy to talk to anybody. Thanks, Kyle.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you again, both. And definitely highly recommend Gary's show, and also check out some of the efforts Irina is putting together and has recently put together. She may be dripping out some new content here shortly, but I'll save that for the next episode. With that, again, thank you so much, audience, for tuning in. If you like what you heard, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Do reach out if you'd like to be on a show like today's. Thank you, Irina. To join Irina, Gary, and some of our other guests to talk about different industries, regions, and technologies that are being used around the world. We'd love to have you here on VCTV. Entrepreneurs, less than 30 days. What better way to end the year and start the next than joining us here at the virtual stage on VCTV to pitch us as investors and founders focused on your industry, to get real-time feedback on your company, product, or service, build foundational relationships with each of us, and to get exposure to our entire live audience. Again, what better way to end and start the next year? Do reach out to the team and or myself. We'd love to find the right spot for you. Last but not least, a big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Maria for making VCTV possible every single day, all day, in all regions around the world, on all devices, bringing us all together to share our thoughts and insights with these different technologies, industries, and regions around the world with you. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. You can find me everywhere at Kyle Ellicott online 24/7. 365. Thank you, Gary. And again, make sure you add context when you reach out to myself, the team, and or all of our guests as well. And we'd love to continue the conversation. We'll be back here just a little bit more VCTV shortly.